when you're talent buying an event, there are artists that are getting tens of thousands of dollars, and there are artists that are getting a few $100s. And I would think, what's the difference between this person and this person? And a lot of times it wasn't talent. It was, a story and a brand and a following and an audience of why they could command the rates that they had.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Headliner Mindset Podcast. Today's guest is the owner of a branding and marketing agency called The Cult Creatives that specializes in working with artists. He has a long history of working in the music industry, starting off as a producer and a DJ himself, and also as one of the promoters who started the legendary weekly party in LA called Control that ran for over 12 years straight. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Chris White.
What's up, man?
What's up, my dude?
How are you?
I'm so good.
Yeah.
I just took a hot boy walk.
Oh, what's a hot boy
Yeah.
walk?
Well, it's like a hot girl walk,
Okay.
but I'm a boy. So you just
Yes.
walk around. The nice thing about being a guy doing this, and I think this is mandatory, is you got to pop the top. You got to take your shirt off and really just to get some sun. That's why I do it. Like, get some vitamin D, middle of the day, take a work break, get some sunshine, just take a walk. It's pretty simple.
I love it. I love it. And if anybody's going to be popping the top, it should be you, because you're making all of us feel bad out here.
We're out here causing car accidents. This is super, super cool to have you on this show for many different reasons, because you're probably one of the people that I go back the furthest with in my career, specifically in the electronic music industry. We connected in, I think, 2011. So
Somewhere in there. Yep.
12 years ago, right when I was just starting to manage artists or get into management. And yeah, I had the pleasure of being like your day-to-day manager for a little while when you were a music producer and DJ, living that life.
Yep.
So we go way back.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, some of the best memories of my life have you in them. And,
Aw.
traveling around to different cities and popping up and, playing our music for people, and you making sure that, everything was running smooth and we showed up on time and, everything's ready for us to do what we do. But I think that on the other side of that was the experience of like having you on the road with me, that like, was such a different experience, one, than being by myself or even being with other sort of, quote unquote tour managers, because of like your energy and the conversations that we would have. I feel like that's really where like our bond started to happen, is just having these really deep conversations about life and purpose and intention. It was just so different than other conversations that I was having with other people in electronic music at the time.
Yeah. And that really is one of my favorite stories, and I think it will be fun to share because there was a specific moment. I can see it in my mind. I remember the moment that I realized I was meant to become a life coach, and the seed was planted because we were driving somewhere, driving back from a show, and you were telling me about how producing and going into the studio every day was feeling like a battle. You're like, it just feels like I'm going to war every day. And I was like starting to study personal development. I was really getting into Tony Robbins. I think I might have even been like dabbling in training as a coach, but I had been introduced to this idea of having like a reframe or a perspective shift. Basically, you were using a metaphor for what producing felt like. It felt tough. It felt like you're going to battle every day, you're going to war. And I was like, dude, that doesn't sound very fun. Right? Like, nobody wants to go to war every day. Nobody wants to go to battle every day. And so I was like, what else could it be? Like, what do you want it to be? If you could actually choose what that metaphor was. And you're like, I want it to be like playing. I want it to be like I'm on a playground. Do you remember that?
I absolutely remember that. And the end of the story, to those that are listening, is that the next week, Nick came back to the studio just because we had to play more music for him and management. And he brought me a framed picture of a playground, which I still have to this day and still hangs up in my creative space.
What?
And yeah, he said, I want you to look at this and be reminded of what this really is, that this is your fun sandbox of where you get to go and create. And I think that that was not maybe it's amazing to hear that that was like a moment for you, but that was a huge moment for me because it completely shifted not just how I made music, just how I looked at creative work. I remember you saying like words have power. And, even to this day, like how I describe things, I'm very careful about like what I assign to be the descriptors. And, I love analogies and, coming up with ways to describe things. But what creative work really represents is something that, should be fun. There's a work element to it, but like in the end, it's like such a blessing to get to do things that are creative. So
Yeah.
appreciate you for reframing that for me. And
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I knew then that you were destined to do what you do now.
Yeah. I was like, I'm better at this stuff than I am at like marketing campaigns but it's actually not the end of the story because I remember you also put AstroTurf on your studio floor. You made it like grass. You had like fake grass so that when you walked in the studio, you literally were walking into the playground.
Yeah.
Like you went all out with it. It
Yeah.
was so sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like what's a metaphor, right? I just remember like when I was talking to you, I'm like, these songs like feel like they're just eating me alive. I wake up and I just go down and it's like I'm having to fight this battle to get the really great thing out of it. And I'm just worn out by the battle. And I think even just the reframing, because I used to look at the studio as not necessarily a negative place, but a place of like extreme discipline. And instead of a place that was fun. And instead of a
Yeah.
place to go and experiment and try different ideas and, break rules and things that maybe I would associate with fun. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, like I wanted to go all in and like, like let's actually take that. I probably would have brought in sand in there if I could have, but
Well, I think for both of us, it was indicators of where we would be 10 years later. You now run a creative agency, the
yes.
Cult Creatives, which I've also had the pleasure of being a part of and partnering with you on things there as well. But let's close that gap. What inspired you to start the Cult Creatives, a branding and marketing agency that you're now running? Because that was 10 years ago that you had the idea for it. What inspired the idea?
The abridged version is that coming from doing the DJ producer thing and then also throwing events where, when you're talent buying an event, there are artists that are getting tens of thousands of dollars and there are artists that are getting a few $100s. And I would think, what's the difference between this person and this person? And a lot of times it wasn't talent. It was, a story and a brand and a following and an audience of why they could command the rates that they had. And so I think that I just saw it as like a unique opportunity that because I had, studied film and art growing up and then gotten into music and DJing and producing and touring, throwing parties. How do you get people to come to the parties? So kind of understanding promotion and marketing and then, releasing songs on labels and music videos and kind of all the things that go around having a music brand that I thought just because I'd had all of those experiences, that it might be a unique perspective to help other people with their brands. And
Yeah.
my favorite part of my own brand was the creative marketing strategy and branding around how I would get people to listen to the music. So I did enjoy making music and I loved being in the studio, collaborating with other artists, but I really, really loved the creative storytelling around getting people to hear whatever it was that I created. And
Yeah.
so that was pretty much the beginning of Cult, was that because I had this event, where Skrillex, Dylan Francis, and Steve Aoki were like the side room DJs that were playing to whatever, 20 or 30 people, that it was just like right place, right time, that I found myself sort of in the middle of the mecca of what became EDM. And I was just friends with a lot of people in the scene.
Yeah.
And, they became like our early clients.
And let's talk about that event a little bit more because that was how I met you. Me and Henry Fong were just talking about this on his podcast episode a couple weeks ago. Like Control LA every Friday night at Avalon. Like I remember working at Capitol Records right across the street and looking across the street and seeing just a line of people out the door every weekend being like, I don't really know what's going on there, but like I got to be a part of it. That looks sick. That looks fun. And eventually got in and started going out to the party, but you guys threw that show every single Friday night for like 12 years, right?
It was 10 years, almost, oddly, almost to the day, which, yeah, it was a decade of my life. And it was something where, I had started DJing in Orange County and was like throwing small events and playing small bars and clubs in Orange County. And then decided that, this was what I wanted to do with my life, moved to LA and kind of started doing the same thing in LA and kind of taking the model of like, trying to do some out of the box indie and electronic music type events that weren't being offered in the market, that it's like, oh, let's go and just do something small. And we really loved parties like Dim Mak Tuesdays. That was like Steve Aoki's party at Cinespace. And there was another one called Check Your Ponytail that Frankie Chan did. And those parties were like, I feel like those parties are what made us. They
Yeah.
were just so fun and really small, but you'd have like Lady Gaga or Daft Punk performing to like 100 people in the back room at Cinespace. And so
Yeah.
it really was like, oh, I want to do that, but just in my own way, my own curation, like my own taste. And so at the time, my manager was Ryan Jaso, and he and I worked together on the events and then also like on my music project. And so we started throwing parties in LA that were these small little 50-person parties. I think the first venue was like a small venue off of Yucca where the cap, like the venue capacity maybe was 60 people. And we were stoked if 60 people came. Like we like
Yeah.
blew it out, and we were booking like, Steve Aoki and the Bloody Beetroots, but for like, a few $100s to like come to this particular event. And so the right place, right time of being in LA, that the event just got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And eventually we took, residency at the Avalon.
And yes, right place at the right time, but to then continue for an entire decade also really says something. Because you also mentioned how, you'd have Skrillex playing in the side room, Dylan Francis, like these guys before they were big, but you booked so many people that went on to become huge. What was it about being able to identify talent and kind of place those bets? Like, I really want to know, like, what was going on behind the scenes that you were able to identify these guys, and what did these guys kind of have in common? Because it's
Yeah.
happened so many times.
Yeah. I'll tell you, it's not a secret as much as it is. I think um, when you're a DJ first, really what a DJ's job is to do is to curate. So you're going through, I started as a vinyl DJ. And so you're going through thousands of records to put together your hour and a half set. And you're going to go find those physical records and then put them in a suitcase and go to some city and like play, what your sound and your set is to an audience of people. So I think that having that kind of mindset of like digging and trying to find something great, you start recognizing what you believe that great is and great is not. And that's not like a judgment on artists or people as much as it is just like realizing that, oh, there's something really special to this thing. And honestly, most of the time, what special meant was different. It was that here's a bunch of things that are the same, and then this
Mm,
thing is different. And
yeah.
and you could tell that this thing had a real strong identity or a real strong understanding of itself, even if I just heard it like on a record. And so I think that it was like having taken that skill set and groomed it over time by just the nature of being a DJ and, having to book talent and, put together these sets that as artists started, sending us their music or we'd like find stuff on SoundCloud or MySpace or wherever we were finding different artists that you could quickly realize that even if something wasn't incredible at that moment, that somebody had a real strong identity around what they were trying to say. And so
Yeah.
that really became that was like some of the secret sauce was like, okay, this thing's really unique and it's different and I'm really excited by it. And I think that, if I'm excited by it, generally like I don't have super niche tastes that I think that a lot of times like I like things that are the general public seems to like. And then also the other secret sauce was that I was friends with all these guys and I would just text people and ask them what they were into.
Yeah.
So I remember like texting Valentino Khan and being like, "Yo, what are you into right now? Like what's hot?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "DJ Snake." He's like, he's this dude out of Paris. He has a song called Bird Machine, fire. And I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I think the first time DJ Snake came to the country, he played for us with no sunglasses on.
Yeah.
And, that was just like a wreck from Valentino. So I think it was also like, who are you asking for their opinion of like their taste? So I think that there was also like, oh, kind of finding my group of different artists and creative people around me that like, were just putting me on game.
How did all of this eventually lead to starting the Cult Creatives agency?
This is a retrospective thought, but I really feel like the thing that excited me and the thing that lit me up was creating platforms for people to shine and to succeed. Like that was really the magic of the control event was that, artists would start in the side room and then they would like make their way into, opening the main stage. And then it was direct support. And then they were headlining. And then, the person from the side room was right behind them, supporting. So, all these sort of like different genres of like, when electro house is on the main stage, dubstep is in the side room, dubstep's on the main stage, trap is in the side room, trap to future bass to techno. And it was so exciting watching artists that like, because I became friends with them, like watching them ascend, it just gave me such a level of joy. And because
Yeah.
I knew the feeling myself. I knew that like, oh, it's like I had a goal to, play to this many people or, play in whatever country, like around the world. And to be able to check that box, I knew what that feeling felt like. So I almost felt like it was an obligation to help the next generation of artists and to help other artists like now that I had acquired sort of some of the knowledge of just like, well, from having all these different experiences, I do have a unique perspective on how you might brand something or package it or, create a campaign. So I think it was really just this idea that having a mission around helping artists grow. That
Yeah.
really was the beginning of what the Cult Creatives was and, what we were about.
And so reflects who you are, and I can attest to that because you've always been somebody in my life that has been such a powerful force and support and mentor and have always gone out of your way above and beyond to help me grow. Like I know like the genuine sincerity with how much you really like just support me and my career and my path. I have to share this. Headliner mindset was your idea.
Mm,
The name that I've had a dozen to 20 people probably be like, dude, that's such a sick name.
mm,
All credit to Chris White right here. But like you've been, just massively supportive, obviously, like as a friend and as a brother. But it it's cool hearing you talk about the inspiration and the excitement, the actual energy, because it wasn't like, oh, I can make a bunch of money building an agency, which a lot
mm,
of agencies are just kind of more founded on the business side. And, being able to work with Cole, I've seen a good amount of our clients usually reflect that as well of like, hey, you guys actually give a fuck. Like
mm.
you guys actually really care. And, I don't know, it is exciting. It is special. It's more than just business. It's like it's the adventure of all of it.
It is, and I think, man, that like, so I collected records when I was younger, and like it is the same feeling. I'm chasing the same feeling that like I'm really excited by this thing, and I just want the world to hear or see this thing that I'm excited by, but see it the same way that I'm seeing it. Everything that I've done is just like positioning this thing that like this thing's amazing. Like you have to see it the way that I'm seeing it. And then if maybe you're not, then there's like ways that I'm like, okay, well, we just need to reframe this or we need to repackage it or present it in a different way because I know that it is awesome. Like someone's taste is their opinion. So I don't think that my taste is better or worse than anyone else that's out there. It's just mine. So I think that it's really a passion around like showing something that I found that I feel is great, and I want the world to see it the way I see it.
Well, talking about getting excited about the growth and the success of others, I just had Freddie Lane
Mhm.
on the podcast
Yeah,
last week. If
yeah,
y'all haven't heard that one, go check out the Freddie Lane episode. She talks about her story, and there's so much good stuff in there. But we talked about Colt because she's one of our clients at the Colt Creatives. But that's been a really fun one to just see her popping off like that.
yeah. I mean, Freddie Lane is just absolutely incredible, and she's kind of like the, you know, perfect quote unquote, type of client for cult because again, it's something that's already amazing, and not that like her as an artist or her music or like her performances, all those things are amazing, but Freddie
Yeah.
the person is amazing, and that's really like her music and her performances, they are an extension of who she is. So that's like all we're trying to do is just create the story that goes alongside this amazing artist. A lot of times we're not trying to quote unquote like develop something or, to make it something that it's not. Like all we're trying to do is show the greatness that this thing is and just,
Yeah.
present it in a way where it's not confusing and you totally understand like what this artist is about.
So let's dig into that a little bit. What exactly is it that you do at the Cult Creatives, and why is it important for artists to be focusing on that side of it?
Ultimately, we're storytellers and we're just looking for great artists and clients to help them tell their stories. It's almost like, for me, I almost look at it as like I had studied screenwriting and script writing in school. And I feel like it's very similar that it's like you're just creating the visual story that goes along with the artist's music. And unfortunately, in 2023, you can't just have this amazing soundtrack anymore. Like you have to have the movie as well as the amazing soundtrack. You have to have the whole thing. The really great artists, a lot of times, have not become great by spending all of their time thinking about their visual brand. They became great because they spent years and years in a studio crafting their music and their sound to get to a level of greatness. And so I think that for us coming in and then working with those artists, it's just kind of creating the packaging around this amazing product that is, them and their music. So that's kind of what we do. And that can be as small as like, the single artwork that goes along with like your latest single on up to, some global campaign where, here's all the live shows in the different cities and pop-ups and apparel offerings and music videos around an album. It's can be, as small as just the single artwork or as large as a global campaign. And so that's why you need an agency and all these different creative bodies to make those stories come to life. And then the second part of your question was, why do artists need it or why is it important? And pretty much just echoing what I said before is that, you do have to have the movie now in order for the audience to really connect with your project, they have to know what you represent and what you're about more than the music. Like one of my favorite bands of all time is Rage Against the Machine. And I love Rage's music, but I also love what Rage is about. I love that, what they stand for and like what they're trying to say. And they made it very, very clear with their performances, with their visuals, with the single artwork, with the things that they would say in interviews, and then, of course, with the music, who they were and what they represented. So that I think a lot of times can just be confusing for artists and, kind of navigating, well, who am I? And like, what is my story? And like, you kind of just get into making beats and now all of a sudden like labels are like wanting to sign you and artists are like playing your beats, out at like big shows. And, you know, um, maybe there hasn't been a consideration around that where, it's such an important part of the whole process.
Yeah, where do you feel like most artists are falling short when it comes to their brand? What are they missing?
I think it's three things. So, first, I think it's intention. Why are you doing what you're doing? I think so often that artists, not that they shouldn't be doing this, but they're just looking at other artists and they're just doing what the other artist is doing. And really, what you want to do is you want to come from like, well, what would you say? What would you do? Like, what makes you different and unique? And it's almost like, think about it as like a conversation. So if there's a bunch of people standing around and they're having a conversation, and then you walk in, and then this guy said something, and then you just said the exact same sentence. What value do you have in the conversation?
Yeah.
So it's like you step in and you're like, actually, my perspective is this, and this is what I think, and this is how, I feel. Even if you're wrong, at least you have like your perspective. And because of your life experience, there's a why to, why you're
Mhm.
saying what you're saying. So intention
Yeah.
is one, cohesion and like stuff being cohesive. So like,
Yeah.
you wouldn't see an episode of Stranger Things and the entire episode is like super comical and like really bright and, it just has zany off the wall comedy because that's not what Stranger Things is. Stranger Things has comical moments, but Stranger Things is nostalgia and there's some horror elements and it's dramatic. So I think that, when you're thinking about your brand, think about it in terms of like it being a story and, do these things match? Where it's like sometimes I'll see an artist and they'll have 4 or 5 different singles and they're all different genres, all amazing. But then the album artwork is completely different for all of them. And it just leaves me confused. Like, I don't really
Yeah.
know who you are and like, and what you represent. And I know that I'm not the only one. I'm sure that other fans feel the same way. So I think that like when you can plant flags and say, this is what I represent, this is what I am about, you'll find your people and your people will find you. But if you're not really sure about what those things are and
Yeah.
why you're doing what you're doing, you know,
That was me for a while with coaching where I was like, I'm a life coach and I coach everybody about everything.
mm,
And, I'm like coaching a real estate guy over here and I'm coaching a whatever over
mm,
here. And then I was a men's coach and I was coaching just a lot of guys and we're getting into masculinity and even the content that I'm putting out, I'm starting to talk about sex and dating. And it's like, but then I'm also talking about creativity with like some artist stuff. And yeah, I had no consistency at all. It's like, who the fuck is this guy? What's this guy all about? And so being able for me to just plant my flag and be like, you know what? I got 15 years in the music industry. I understand artists. I've worked with thousands of them. I love working with artists. Like let me stay here. This is where my flag is planted. And it's been insane how quickly I've seen just results from that of the consistency of being like, oh yeah, this is the dude. Like this is the artist coach guy that, understands this world and specializes in this world. And it's made a massive difference in my business. And so I think it's the same thing, like branding for any company. And again, looking at it like a business, not just, your artist project is a business as well. So I can speak firsthand of just seeing the effects of planting your flag and being consistent.
it's not that dissimilar from life. That it's like, that's what for me, I actually used to look at like, okay, I have my process and, how we work with the co-creatives and we get like such, great results, with the people that we work with, but that's work. And then I have like my life. And I started to think about my life almost in that same way where I was like, well, wait, the process that's actually like, define your results and like, who are you and what are you trying to do and what are you trying to say and, being consistent and cohesive and like these are not design things. These are great life rules, to follow for quote unquote success
Yeah.
is like how you discover what those things are. That I think so, you coaching all of those different people, I don't think that that was like, oh, that's the wrong path because it led you to the realization that it's like, oh, I really can give a crazy amount of value to this community because I've worked with thousands of artists through the
Yeah.
years. And, I have this level of study in this field, but then I have this experience. And also like, you see something that is being underserved. That's
Yep.
another thing that's really important where I think that when we started the Cult Creatives Agency, I would tell friends about it and they're like, wow, that's like that's so unique and niche and different. And, because I would talk with a lot of managers and agents and like, they would just hire if they've got an album that's being released for an artist, they have to hire the graphic designer to do all the work. They have to hire a creative director to run the creative, music video directors to do the music videos, promo people, who's going to come up with like the strategy, from like the label side. These are all different people. And like hopefully you get that team right as you build up what the squad is going to look like for the campaign. But I felt like that was something where it's like, well, we had experiences with all these different creative people and these people were just really great quality people. And so then when a campaign would happen, that it's like we already had sort of the team or the Rolodex to kind of build out around that. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I think our entire world is driven by trying to make things simpler, right? How can we simplify the process? Like, all right, I want to be able to just have a one-stop shop. Can I just
right,
can I just have one person that just like helps me with all of this rather than 10 or 15 people? Can I just have one app instead of seven apps, right?
right.
It's very aligned with just the whole direction of simplification that our entire society is moving towards.
And also like simplification, but with like trust. I think that that's the thing is like this combines all these different things into one, but I now trust it. I
Yeah.
trust that all these apps that are in my iPhone, like I trust, that this is the tool that allows me to do all these different things. And these are the best apps, to help me get to where I'm trying to go or look up how many calories of food I'm eating, whatever
Yeah.
the apps are. So I think that that's like finding something that is an underserved market and doing that with your music as well. Of like, what's the stuff that you would want for your car? If you weren't trying to like make it, quote unquote, make it as an artist, what would you just want for your car that doesn't exist right now? And if you can answer that question, that is the most pure form of what it is that you should create.
Mm.
And so then it's like, okay, this is something that is unique to me and something that I don't feel like is out there. And then, the cult creatives is just, can be a collaborator in how you actually package it and then quote unquote take it to market.
Yeah. And do you think that artists need to be thinking about that really with their music of how do I create something that nobody else is creating? Or is it that can we still create something that I'm just genuinely inspired by, but then the brand can be the differentiator? Like,
I mean, it's always the case that an artist, myself included, that generally when artists start, you are mimicking your heroes and you're mimicking things that you love and that you're inspired by. And then through that, mimicking, you find your sound
yeah,
in, just trying to like emulate your heroes. But I think that, once you get to a place to where it's like, okay, I now want to offer something to this conversation, it's very, very important to offer yourself. And like, I know that can be a very sort of like deep thing. And well, like, what is yourself? And, you know, I, I find that the best exercise is to just look back and look at your life, and no one has lived your life. You are completely unique in all the experiences that you've had, and just highlight like the, top 10 to 12 experiences that were different and, kind of stood out to you, and then how that might influence your art. People, of course, they like someone's music, or they like their painting or their film, but as artists gain an audience, really what the audience is interested in is the artist. They're interested in them as people, and like, what are they going to do next? Like, what are they going to say next? So being able to have that authentic offering, from yourself that is truly you. If you're just making, a track that sounds, just like the other track that's charting on, whatever playlists, like that's not you. That's you being a mimic of this thing that already exists.
Yeah, yeah. And I think what's cool as well is seeing, and we've seen this many times, is that a brand also it has stages and it has an evolution. It's something that continues to grow. And as an artist, it's like right now, this is might be where your inspiration is at. You might be making this style or this genre or this sound, but you're going to be a different person in 5 years. And you might be inspired to make different things, and you can pivot, you can shift. I think a lot of people sometimes are maybe hesitant to plant their flag in the ground because it's like, well, then I'm going to be stuck here forever. And we could have an entire business just off of rebrands. Like, how many people have we had that have come and been like, hey, I've built a business around this genre. It's looked like this. It's done really, really well. But I'm not the same person that I was 5 years ago. I'm not really, I'm not. It doesn't fit me anymore. The suit doesn't fit. I need to have it retailored
Mm,
and do and make something different. I think Porter Robinson's a great example of that. If you remember, Porter in the beginning was making like electro house bangers, like super
yeah.
heavy electro house, and it's like, later on he did this huge rebrand where he was bringing like anime and bright colors, and his sound was totally different. And it's still Porter,
Mm.
but he allowed himself and had the courage to rebrand himself and to pivot, and did it really effectively. And maybe some people weren't into his new stuff, but he also probably gained a couple million new followers as well. And so that's, I think, something really important to remember is like, yeah, you're not like stuck with your brand forever. Your brand will have stages of evolution, and it could even be drastic stages. But if it's cool and you're making cool shit and it's coming from the heart and it's energized and it's inspiring and you're being intentional and thoughtful about the brand, like, it's always going to work.
I mean, I think you're absolutely correct. And I think that the thing that stuck out to me of what you just said is you said it's still Porter. That is the part of it that, like, you can jump all around. You look at an artist like Diplo, who, there's hip hop, there's dance music, there's country, but it's still Wes. It's
Yeah,
still him, and like his taste and like his creativity and his thoughts around like a particular genre. And I don't know if other people can, but I can hear it. I can hear it
yeah,
inside of even though the genres are completely different, I can still hear him in there.
yeah. Yeah, Skrillex is a great example as well. Looking at like years ago, even like his branding and how they were putting him out there was freaking. I remember seeing him on like a X-wing like spaceship, futuristic, gnarly dubstep, and it's like, okay, I just saw him play at Red Rocks, just him DJing with like almost like no visuals, like he was DJing in a freaking basement or something, like very, very chill,
Yeah.
making completely different music. And he's just like, yeah, I'm an artist. I can do whatever the fuck I want. And it's still him, and there's still a cool vibe around it. There's still a cool brand around it. And we get to evolve and not be attached to the like the skin that we're in. We're gonna shed our skin along the way.
I mean, those are the benefits of being an artist. Rick Rubin says that being an artist is like being a monk, that it's like you either are or you are not. You are either a
Mm,
monk or you are not a monk. And like being an artist, like a lot of times there's no 401k or health and dental, but the benefit of being an artist is that you can express and you can say what it is that you want to say. And so that there's no other job in the world that allows you to do that.
Yeah. And something I've talked about a handful of times here already, I talk about a lot on my social media. And just like a soft plug, I am looking at creating just like a community for artists online, a space that people can come and connect. Because also part of that artist journey is oftentimes really doing it by yourself, especially as a laptop electronic music bedroom producer. It's like, cool, I have everything in my laptop. I don't need anything. I've got all of the music, I've got all the editing software, I've got all the video programs, I've got everything. And, we had a great conversation about this in the last episode with Freddie, but in order to really grow, first off, just as a human, we need other humans in our corner. We need other people. We need community to grow and to thrive, but also in your business as well, right? We need to have other people involved to help us really truly reach our full potential. And I think that I really want to hammer home that point because I think that that's being missed. I think that's why working at Icon Collective and seeing how many artists came out of Icon it were so successful because we had a community. We were sharing resources, we were connecting. So I want to shift into talking a little bit about what it would look like to have the cult creatives on your team and what it would look like to be working with other people in building your brand, building your business. What does that actually look like for somebody if they joined the cult and drink the Kool-Aid?
Sure. Sure. I think that, there's a lot of different ways that we work with artists and it is completely unique to the artist. And I think that really like the mission of the cult creatives is to help artists and creative companies grow. That is really like we're more driven by results than we are art and design. That is a component of it, but really it's kind of the thing I was saying before, where it's like, I just want the world to see things the way that I see this amazing thing. And I think that having had a lot of really great people in my corner, like yourself, in the early part of my career, having people helping you with the storytelling and marketing and what's the look and feel and what should the music videos be and people that you trust and people that are like truly rooting for you. Like the cult creatives isn't for everyone, but for the people that it is for, I would argue that, and this isn't me, this is just the squad of people that we have working here. I think that it's the best group of people in the world doing this kind of work because of like what you said before is that like everyone here cares about the projects that we work on. We had a couple of our like motion graphics and design team. They went to EDC a few weeks back and they came back and they're just like, it was so amazing. It's like I'm seeing this visual that I created on this stage and this logo I made at this stage, and then watching this artist, they just leveled up from playing this spot to this spot. And like we genuinely care about the success. And I think that sometimes you can work with like those personal trainers where it's like they give you the information and like you'll definitely make the moves that you need to make working with them in terms of like your physical health. And then there are the personal trainers where it's like, not only are they getting me the results, but I feel like they genuinely care. And I think that that's maybe the difference with the cult creatives and other agencies.
I mean, that's how I coach as well. It's like my last coaching conversation. Whenever we like wrap up our term with each other, if we're gonna part ways, like I always tell them, like, look, now that we've gone through this experience together, I'm in your corner for the rest of your life. Like I'm your brother now, and I love, a year later, I'll get a text from somebody sharing their wins and being like, "Yo, dude, like check it out. Here's what's happening." I'm like, "Fuck yeah!" And it's rad because I just have like an army of people out there now that I've been able to play a little bit of a role in their story. And to me, that's just so fulfilling knowing that like I got to paint a few brushstrokes on that canvas right there. I got to just touch that for a few moments and play even just a small role, to me it is so rewarding, but it's all coming from a genuine place of like, yeah, I just want to see people fucking win.
Yeah.
Whether we work together for 3 months or we work together for the next decade, like it's all about leveling up. It's like all boats rise, you know? And so
Yeah.
I love that.
And I think too that for those that are listening to this podcast, that it is something that I feel like the proof is in the pudding of like with Nick, like I think a lot of people can say that they care about working with somebody and like really being able to affect their life in a positive way. But like I think that there's there's people who will say these things and they don't actually mean it. And then there's people that really show up and like they do the work. And as somebody that's, been around Nick for many, many years, this is not like, this is me like speaking genuinely. This isn't like a plug for Nick, that it's like, I had a golf coach in high school. I played golf in high school, and one day he brought in a swing coach, and he was gonna like work with all the different golfers on the team and help us with our swing. And I was like, oh man, I'm like, this guy's gonna totally change my swing. I know it. I'm like, I'm really slicing the ball terribly and I can't seem to get rid of it. Or I'm like hooking it, really hard left. My swing speed is good and I really like the motion. And when this swing coach came in, he just had me like hit a few balls, and he comes up to me after and he's like, all right, he's like, what I want you to do is I want you to slide your right foot back like a quarter of an inch. He's like, then just swing your swing. Just swing exactly how you swing. And all of a sudden, instead of going way off this way or way off this way, it was now like going like perfectly straight. And I feel like that's what you did for me. And that's what you do for other people, is that like sometimes it is some sort of like massive shift, but a lot of times it's like just helping people unlock and reframe things that are already there. Like they already have this like great thing inside of themselves. That was really in the beginning of the Cult Creatives. That's what I would say to Lindsay, the other owner and my partner in the Cult Creatives, because I had my own artist project at the time. And I would say like, man, how is it that we get such crazy results with, our clients? And then, for my project, like I'm still struggling with X, Y, and Z. And she said, oh, because when it's your project, you can only see out of your own eyes. It's so personal to you, and you're running everything through the filter of yourself. And would I do this? Would I not do this? And then when we work with a client, she's like, I see you. You're different. Like you just come in, you have like a bird's eye view, and you're just looking at results of like how to shift what's happening and, gain the results of whatever the client is about. So, I think that, having people in your corner that have those different perspectives and can present things in different ways, I don't think it's a way. I think it's the way towards success. And if you
Yeah.
if you look at the most successful people in the world, all of them surround themselves with people that have different perspectives and people that have like these unique skill sets and can bring, a new perspective into the conversation. So I wanted to say like kudos to you for what you're doing. And I think it's like such important work. And yeah, you're amazing, dude.
Thank you, bro. Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I wouldn't be here without you in so many different ways. And I think it's really cool that we are very aligned in what we do, whether we're creating brands or whether we're creating humans. I'm not creating any humans yet, not that I know of, but whether creating transformation, I should say.
Yes.
I love the metaphor that Michelangelo, when he was creating the statue of David and he carved it out of marble, he said that David already existed within the marble. I just chiseled away everything that was not David. And that's a lot of the work that I do, where I'm looking at like, what do you believe? What are these thoughts? What are these beliefs? I was like, is that really you? Like, is that the real you, or is that something that society told you, something that your parents told you? And we're just like chiseling away at these things to tap in to the deeper level of their authentic self and their inner truth, which is that you are a freaking infinite spiritual being having this experience with infinite potential, and you're a fucking badass. So like, let's get back in touch with that. Let's own that. Similarly, I think with Cole, it's like, hey, the idea's already there. Like your magic is already there. All of that. We're not giving you anything. We're not telling you what to be. we're like helping you chisel away all the things that you're not so that you can get clear about who you are and get clear about these parts of yourself that you want to share with the world so you can really firmly and confidently plant that flag down and be like, yo, this is me, or at least this is my artist project. Like this is what's up.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's very similar work, just in, different mediums. And
Yeah.
like I really resonate with what you said about, the sculpting of Michelangelo, or sorry, Michelangelo's David, because not a plug, but if you were to go and look at the Cult Creatives website right now, you would see that all of the brands are completely different from one another. And that's because it is not a brand that we're creating that's like a templatized thing that like we give to artists. What we're trying to discover is like, what is the most true version and visual representation and story of this artist, and then bring that to life. So because all the artists are completely unique, this one's got super bright colors and illustration and, really specific type of motion graphics for their live visuals. And then this one's the dark bass music artist, that's very like emo and based on like photography and like these really heavy colors because, they're saying different things. And what you said earlier, it's like, I've always kind of looked at cult as we are like suit tailors and that like, we are essentially just like creating these suits for people to wear that are just these beautiful suits, but they have to wear them and it has to be representative of who they are as an artist. So I feel like you're doing the deep work of like really helping people like find who they are and like unlocking very serious blocks that they may have to try to lead them towards the promised land. And I
Yeah.
think like for me, like what we're doing with our work is just, helping these artists really get their story out to the world of what it is that they're trying to say and, what they're trying to do.
And we also don't just take on anybody at Colt. There is a bit of a application process to make sure that we're aligned and the right fit. What do you look for in artists and the people that you really want to work with?
Yeah, that's a really great question. It isn't a pretentious like we only work with, certain artists. Like we will work with some artists that just graduated from Icon Collective up to an artist that is in the DJ Mag Top 100. We will work with a startup company that just got their first round of funding and we'll work with, billion-dollar global brands. It's more around like what is aligned to us. Like I have a whole group of creative people, that work with the Cult Creatives agency. And usually when projects come in, we have a discussion as a group and, is this something that aligns to us and we feel as though we can add a level of value. And I look at like what we do with Cult is like this is a promise. Like whether or not we're creating a piece of single artwork for someone or whether we're doing some huge global campaign, it's a promise that we're going to come with it on our end and we're going to deliver the very best quality that we can and that it will hopefully get the results that all of us are after. So I think it's like finding people that have the same passion around the work as we do. And it's not necessarily like, oh, well, we only are signing like artists that are like super talented, or we're only going to work with artists of like this caliber. It's actually much more of like a personality thing where it's like, are we the right fit for the artist? And is the artist the right fit for us? And can we go and, take this journey together and reach our goals or our results?
Yeah. Hell yeah, man. Well, if anybody out there is looking for help with their brand, feel like they want to learn more about what the Cult Creatives does, check out the website, thecultcreatives.com. Hit me up, slide in the DMs. I'd be happy to share more about what it is that we do over there. But it's been a blast being a part of the team again. I mean, I was involved 10 years ago when we first started. I remember having dinner with you and Lindsay, just talking about the idea. And I was around at the beginning, and it was just, I guess it's been almost a year now, or this last year, since last summer. I kind of started dipping my toes back in and becoming a part of the Cult team. And it's been so rad, man. That was a big, I think, similarly to a lot of artists, I was just doing all this by myself. I was life coaching by myself, just working as a solopreneur out of my bedroom every day with no team. And so when we reconnected, it really breathed a lot of life back into what I was doing, because I was like, cool, I got a team now. I got other people that I'm working with, and I'm a very social being, so I need that. So I'm very thankful that the universe brought us back together. I'm very grateful to have you in my life as a brother, and just to be rocking with the cult team again. It's been super fun.
Yeah, man. And look, like we could not be more happy to have you. And like, I mean this so genuinely that like our conversations, like we'll have to get into, strategy and, campaigns and things that we're working on, with the agency. And then typically there's always like 10 or 15 minutes at the end of that call where we'll just be on some hot one.
Yeah,
And like,
or more like the first 30 minutes of the call, we're just
that's
like,
true. That's true.
and then we're like,
That's
oh,
true.
we should probably start talking some strategy here.
Probably. Yeah, man. And I think that like that's the joy of like what we get to do, that it's like there is the running a business and like having a level of success with your business cup. And then there is the fulfillment cup of like what lights you up and like what is a part of your intention and like your mission. And I feel like you and I have been so aligned on like being driven by a mission of helping other people really since we became friends. So
Yep.
that's what, like we couldn't be more stoked to have you back kind of jamming, with the cult, and we got you that Kool-Aid refill.
Yeah, baby.
And you're back in, and we couldn't be more happy, man.
It's delicious. I love it. I'm going to keep drinking the Kool-Aid. Thank you so much for being on today.
Yes, sir.
You are the man.
You're the man.